YouTube is a company that I hope you are all aware of since you're watching this video. But whilst many people know of YouTube as a platform, I'd say a majority of people wouldn't be able to name a single one of its founders, or even the current CEOs of YouTube or Google. But that said, they do exist. So we're going to be looking at the 3 men who created YouTube, how much they earned from YouTube, and why they've all since disappeared off the internet. Kareem was born to parents of Bangladeshi and German roots on October 28, 1979. He was born in the communist East Germany during the post-war split of the country, but not soon after he was born, his parents, him and his younger brother would defect to the west of the country, hoping to escape the xenophobia due to his Bangladeshi father. However, this didn't go too well, as whilst they stayed in West Germany for the better half of a decade, they still received many xenophobic comments. Due to this, in 1992, the Kareem family moved to America to St. Paul, Minnesota. This is where he would attend school before eventually moving to the University of Illinois, where he studied computer science. However, he wasn't on campus for very long, as he moved to work for PayPal in the early days of the company's success. Not to say that he dropped out, he actually kept studying at the college remotely, where he eventually did earn his bachelor's degree in computer science. Working at PayPal is where he would eventually meet his soon-to-be business partners, and he said that his inspiration for making YouTube was because he couldn't find any clips online of that year's Super Bowl or the Indian tsunami, which, for some reason, I guess he wanted to watch. Most people would recognize Kareem for his appearance in YouTube's first ever video, Me at the Zoo, an 18-second long video in 240p of Kareem talking about some elephants at a zoo, which has accumulated 188 million views in 16 years. Chen was born in Taiwan to 2 Taiwanese parents in August of 1978. When he was 8, him and his family immigrated to the United States and settled in Prospect Heights, Illinois. He took a shine to mathematics and computer science from an early age and attended Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy for his final few years of high school, before also attending the University of Illinois with Kareem. But due to Kareem's early move to PayPal, they never actually met each other on campus. Once moving to PayPal, however, he met Kareem, but he wasn't set on the creation of YouTube just yet, as before joining the trio, he went to Facebook to work there for several months before coming back to help out on the creation of YouTube. His job at the company was Chief Technology Officer, where he was to keep the service running with enough capacity to support the user base. Hurley was probably the main member of the group. Born in Reading, Pennsylvania on January 24, 1977, making him the oldest of the 3 founders. In his early life, Chad took a liking to art, but also developed a mild interest in computers and technology when he reached high school. He was also a talented track star where he would win 2 championships in the early 90s. Despite all of this, he followed what he was interested from a young age by studying fine arts at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Once receiving his bachelor degree, he moved on to working at PayPal on the UI and design team, where he would meet the other 2 founders. His opinion on why YouTube was created is different to Kareem's, saying that he made it because he wanted to be able to share videos of a dinner party online. Guess we can say that Kareem had a better idea of what would be found on the trending page of the YouTube than Hurley did. Upon the creation of YouTube, however, Hurley was the CEO of the company. YouTube was built by the trio along with a handful of staff members who were working for free to get the website up and going. In mid to late 2005, their luck improved as they secured $3.5 million in funding from Sequoia, allowing them to launch officially to the public in November 2005. They also secured a further $8 million in investments in the early half of 2006. By July, no longer than 8 months after they opened, they were having 65,000 videos uploaded to the website every day, which is quite a bit less than the 30,000 hours of videos uploaded every hour in 2020, but nonetheless is very impressive for what was really still the early days of social media. And clearly Google were impressed too, as they set out to acquire the young company very early on. They offered $1.65 billion to the trio, but this sale wasn't great for the 3 of them, as Kareem had actually at this point already stepped away from YouTube. He remained as an advisor but had no direct part in the company. This isn't to say, however, he was paid nothing for his time at the company, as he was still given a cut, just much smaller one than he would have got if he stuck it out just a little bit longer. Cut of the money was shared like this. Jord Kareem would receive 137,334 shares of stocks worth around $64 million at the time. Stephen Chen would receive 694,087 shares of Google and 41,232 shares in a trust worth $345 million at the time. And finally, Chad Hurley would receive 625,366 of Google stocks and a further 68,721 shares in a trust worth $325 million, but now worth $1.78 billion. But whilst at this point Jord Kareem was out of the company and free to do what he wanted, Chad and Steve both stayed at YouTube for many years after. Chad Hurley remained the CEO of the company up until 2010, where he resigned to move on to other things he wanted to explore, and Steve Chen stayed up until 2009, where he moved to work at Google, which he did for 2 more years. But that's where it changed for the trio. Jord Kareem went back to school studying to get his master's degree in computer science at Stanford University, which he eventually did achieve. Post that, he started up a company which would serve as a consultant to other startup companies. They did get a few large clients such as Reddit, Airbnb, and Postmates. He also became very vocal in 2013 in response to Google forcing users to have to use a Google Plus account to comment on YouTube, a move that is widely seen as a bad one. But Google consisted at it for years despite there being a petition that got 240,000 signatures to say to not do it. It wasn't until 2018 that they actually removed this requirement. The only contact Kareem has had with people was commenting on his one and only video, but he did make a recent appearance on a video where someone else rescaled the video using AI to 8K, where he commented cool. But besides that, not much is known about Jord Kareem. He said that he wanted to become a professor at a university, but there's nothing to say whether he's actually achieved doing this. Chad Hurley, after stepping down, started a company called Avos System, a company dedicated to helping app developers test their apps in real time. From this, he started to work with a startup company called Mixbit. He was hoping to create the same success YouTube did, but on mobile device markets instead of computer-based ones like YouTube. However, this wouldn't run for very long as YouTube also started to dominate in this space not long after. He's more recently been known to invest in sports teams like LA Football Club, Golden State Warriors, and England's Leeds United Football Club. He's also invested in the F1 team US F1, but if that name doesn't sound familiar to you, you're not the only one, as the team never actually competed in a single race, never mind a season. Leaving Steve Chen, who initially joined Chad Hurley at Avos Systems, but left soon after when Chad started working with Mixbit, as he didn't want to work on another video distribution platform after working on YouTube for half a decade. He actually ended up back at Google pretty quickly in their Google Ventures program, which is similar to Avos Systems he joined, which is just another startup company investor. Then he clearly changed his mind as he started a live streaming and video platform called Nomcom, which is beginning to start a trend that I've noticed with these three. They cannot create a company with a good name. However, this closed in 2017, due likely to the heavy competition from Twitch.tv, who still to this day completely dominates the live streaming space. After all of this, Steve Chen and his family decided to move back to Taiwan in the latter half of 2019. Well timed, as if he tried even 6 months later, he probably wouldn't have been able to do it with COVID. So in the end, after YouTube, they all worked at companies that would invest into smaller startup companies. All 3 invested or worked directly in a company that did video streaming, and all of them have kept their social footprint to a complete minimum with no social medias. Funny considering that they created what could have been considered as one of the first social medias, even if they didn't intend it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video and found out a little bit more about the 3 guys who started YouTube. If you enjoyed this video and want to see something similar, check out the video on how Mr. Beast spends $40 million in a year on his videos. Anyway, other than that, I will see you next time.